And I'm here to tell you that I intend to support rescinding the motion, that I also intend to support the drafting of an NDO ordinance. Item number 7 is open for a public hearing. The matter this evening is to decide whether or not to rescind tabling the matter and moving on to a ordinance. Now, before you speak, Councilperson Semino, have something to comment on, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm wondering, do all 11 of us have an opportunity to read all the letters we received
If you have
tonight?
something you'd like to present, absolutely.
Well, I didn't know we were going to do this tonight.
Well, you know, and I was not aware either. So, but if you have anything you'd like to present,
I have
yes.
hundreds of them. So should I go to my house and get them, or what do I do?
No, if they're not here, it's going to be impossible to read
Okay.
them.
Well, I thought this was going to be a fair process, but let's move on.
Okay?
Well, I thought this was going to be a fair process, but let's move on.
Okay. You'll need to provide your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes to testify.
I'm here to testify or to appeal to the council to table any further discussions on the NDO. This debate should be handled amicably, not through litigation over what does this exception mean, what does this exception not mean.
Well, you mentioned choice, and that's why I said, do you believe that the members of the LGBTQ community have made a choice?
Does your religious perspective condone infidelity?
Excuse me?
Do you, as a Christian, in terms of what your faith is, does your church condone infidelity? Or is that an immoral issue? You just made the comment that a city ordinance shouldn't, I think I heard what, I'll say what I think I thought you said, that city ordinance shouldn't determine who sleeps with who. So I want to thank you for making the case for a non-discrimination ordinance. That's all I have.
I don't see how I'm not sure how I made the case for a non-discrimination ordinance.
Are there any other questions of this witness?
I ask you to please pass this ordinance in support of the GLBT community.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this gentleman? Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd ask that you allow the process to continue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Harmon.
My
Are there
pleasure.
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please vote for the NDO and the well-being and freedom of all. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you
Thank
for coming in.
Thank you.
I'd like to make 3 points against continued work on the Billings NDO.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this gentleman? Yes, Councilperson Bird.
Could you repeat again what your last statement was? That last, the unshackling deal?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I don't quite understand why you think your freedom of speech will be limited if an ordinance protecting the LGBT community is added to policy. So you honestly believe that the First Amendment, which gives the freedom of speech to all of us, seriously is going to be compromised?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Yeah, the question's been answered. Are there any other questions for this gentleman? Thank you very much.
Much like hate crime laws, an NDO would cater to a small percentage of people, granting them extraordinary legal protection beyond that afforded all citizens.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Are there questions? Councilperson Bird?
Yes. Can you tell me again, you said something bias I didn't quite catch.
Confirmation bias.
Question then?
Yes.
So, given the fact that you're alleging that the LGBT proponents are using the tool of confirmation bias to make their case, isn't it really true that the opponents of the NDO are using the same strategy and using confirmation bias to make their case?
One more.
Again, you didn't answer my question. I asked you specifically if confirmation bias was also being used by the opponents
Next.
And I'm here tonight to request you to direct the staff to resume their work and develop a non-discrimination ordinance. And
Thank you, Senator Moss. Are there any questions? Thank you for coming in.
What are we going to do to protect my rights? I want to thank you for your decisions, and I thank you for being here, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Are there any questions for this gentleman? Thank you for coming in.
Laurel, former Speaker Pro Tem of the Montana House of Representatives, and I currently serve as President of the Montana Family Foundation. I've been involved in this issue mainly in the courts and the legislature for the past 15 years. For 15 years, our opponents have tried to get this type of language inserted into state law, and for 15 years, the legislature has said no, primarily for two reasons. First, they've not seen the necessity, and the second is the very real possibility of unintended consequences. Consequences that are now becoming reality in states and cities that have passed these laws. I'll focus my remarks on the first point.
Do you think that we are usurping the authority of the state government in Helena by tackling this issue?
Any other questions? Councilperson Byrd and then Councilman Cromley.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Laszloffy, you said that the proponents for the NDO are using anecdotal evidence to make their case.
Yes, ma'am.
Couldn't the same be said for the opponents of the NDO using the same kinds of anecdotal evidence to make your case?
No, ma'am.
Tell me what's the difference? Follow up, Mayor?
Yes.
So given that comment, do we have any documented evidence that someone of your perspective has been discriminated against at this point?
Yes, ma'am. All across the United States.
No, I'm
and
talking
growing.
about the 4 cities that have passed non-discrimination ordinance. You have just told us that there's no documented evidence against discrimination to the LGBT community. I want to hear in the 4 cities what documented evidence there is that you as Christians bringing this forth have been discriminated against.
You need to take a step up, and you need to understand why this issue...
I'd like you to answer the question.
Okay.
Ma'am, I need to. I need to lay the groundwork.
Allow the gentleman to answer, please.
For these and many other reasons, please, I ask you to vote to rescind the drafting of the NDO. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you for coming in. Are there questions for this gentleman? Councilman Cromley.
Thank you, Mayor. Pastor Schwartz, so it's my understanding you believe that people who are living the homosexuals are immoral. Is that correct?
I believe it's against the Word of God.
Yeah, my question was they are immoral. Is that correct?
I'm just telling you that it's against the Word of God.
Okay. Do you know whether or not they're living an immoral life?
It's an immoral life according to the Word of God, yes, of course.
And that's from the Bible, correct?
Yes.
And mixing of the races is also in the Bible is wrong, correct?
Please repeat your question.
Mixing of the races, that's frowned upon in the Bible, is that correct?
No. I don't know where you're coming from.
Okay.
I'm coming from the Bible, but thank you.
I stand before you today and respectfully request that you kill this ordinance now. The proposed ordinance causes me great concern for a number of reasons. I would like to share with you my 3 main concerns, and thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this witness? Councilman Cromley.
Yes, Ms. Strong, you gave a figure of how many sexual predators?
There are approximately 345 registered sexual offenders. That is not including those who are just roaming free with no...
And where?
In Billings proper.
Okay. And all of those are heterosexual, correct?
No, that is that's overall. That is the total list, sir.
How many are homosexual?
I have no idea. That was why I said
So you don't disagree with my assertion that they're all heterosexual?
I have no... I looked at the list. I've looked at many of the faces. Some of them were hetero, some of them were not, sir.
You could tell?
No, it lists whether they were... whether it was men against boys or otherwise.
Other questions? Councilman McFadden.
Thank you, Your Honor. So are you concluding that if a man molests a boy, that that would be an act homosexual by nature? You know, it would be called child molesting or a pedophile, but that would be by nature a homosexual act if they were both of the same sex. Is that a proper assertion?
Well, is not an act of a male with a female child still a heterosexual act?
That's right.
So yes, it would be a homosexual act,
okay,
and it would
thank
be
you.
pedophilia.
Councilman Brown?
Thank you. Just to be clear, and I need to ask you this question. So were you trying to say that homosexuals are the ones that are going to be in there abducting or raping or whatever in the restaurant?
That is not what I am addressing. Thank you.
Other questions, Councilperson Byrd?
Thank you.
Jennifer Strong.
Senior moment. Sorry.
That's fine.
Oh.
Sorry.
Councilperson Pittman?
This is for you and maybe Councilman Cromley. We've been talking LGBT, and now I keep hearing Qs being added. Does somebody want to tell me Q?
It stands for queer or questionable.
Okay.
Questioning. Sorry.
Are there any other questions for this witness? Councilperson Byrd?
Thank you.
I'm glad you remembered,
Sorry.
Councilwoman.
I guess I'd like to know, are you aware if there have been any documented incidents in Billings where there's been a rape or a molestation in a public restroom?
I cannot give you a statistic for that. I am sorry. I am not aware, but I do know that that this will open a door to make it an occurrence. I can't imagine that it wouldn't.
Yes.
It's naive to think otherwise.
So if this were going to happen, don't you think it could be possible that it's happened already?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But you have no documentation of a situation or an incident in Billings?
You're correct. And if we have this NDO on the books, then there will be no way to keep those people out of the restrooms that would commit those crimes. They have a free right to be there.
Thank you.
Thank you.